So this is what I woke up to this morning. It's snowing in Lake George, New York, and I think I got the best view in town, that's for sure. And although I would love to just relax today, enjoy my view, I got a very busy day ahead of me, a lot on my schedule, so I gotta get ready. But first things first, I gotta make some coffee. So I'm sure we've all been in a similar situation. We're staying in a hotel and there's just no coffee to be found. And really the only option becomes one of these contraptions. And although this is a very interesting, fascinating piece of technology that utilizes these individual coffee packets, this is just not gonna cut it for me. And I'm not talking about caffeine here, I'm talking strictly about quality. So the question becomes, is there a way to brew a quality cup of coffee in the comforts of your hotel room? Yes, I believe there is. And if you're interested in seeing my brewing technique while I'm out on the road, you might want to hang out for the next couple moments, because I'm going to do my best to brew an amazing cup of joe. So if you saw my last coffee episode, I talked about two very popular brewing techniques, the French press and the Chemex pour-over technique. But let's face it, these are not practical brewing methods while staying in a hotel. But one that is something that's becoming wildly popular among the masses. In fact, your local cafe probably has one on hand. This is called the Aeropress. Now this isn't a fly-by-night info-commercial product. There's actually worldwide international competitions utilizing just this little plastic contraption. Inside of this PVC looking tube, this is where we're going to brew and steep the coffee. But putting all of this aside for a second, let's talk about coffee. If you're like me and love small production coffee roasters, folks who are super passionate about purchasing and roasting their own coffee beans, this is a company that might interest you. This is Spectre Coffee Roasters out of Glens Falls, New York, and this is going to be a Costa Rican, Latin American coffee. But let's face it, not everybody has access to coffee roasters, and a lot of people do enjoy the larger coffee companies, whether it be Peet's or the mammoth Starbucks. And we have a Starbucks coffee here, another Latin American coffee, but this one out of Guatemala, the Antigua Valley is where this single origin coffee is coming from. And this is a relatively new product from Starbucks. So what I would like to do is make 2 cups of coffee using the Aeropress. One, the super small production Spectre coffee versus the super large production Starbucks coffee. Try these 2 cups side by side and see what the true differences are between these 2 Latin American roasted coffees. Let's get to it. And so yes, you're going to need additional items to brew using the Aeropress, but if you're brewing coffee at home, you should already have these essential items. And they're all small and compact, so they're easy to travel with. So just bring them along when you're on the road. Those items are gonna be, so first things first, this is an electric water kettle. And honestly, I never spend more than a couple of dollars on one of these because they have the tendency to break. But you can pick one of those up for $5 to $10. And although this is a large one, they do come smaller. Number 2, the Gooseneck kettle. Now this is going to be an essential tool for any barista. What's so great about it? Well, this long spout is going to maximize your accuracy for placement of the water when brewing, but also the volume that is coming out of the vessel. This puts you in complete control. Now this is essential for things like a pour over, but can you get away without it for the Aeropress? Yes, you could. Just don't tell your local barista I said so. Number 3, a digital scale. This is going to help us out with the weight of the coffee and the weight of the water. A cooking thermometer is always a smart thing to have on hand. I have a bamboo spoon. Bamboo is always going to be a little bit more safe and gentle on your coffee tools. Arguably, one of the most important things to consider is how are you going to grind those beans? Well, this is what I carry around with me, this monster. This is an Encore Baratza Conical Burr grinder. And what's so great about this is that you can dial in precisely the exact grind size that you need. A super fine espresso grind, a medium grind for a drip or pour over method, or even a coarse grind for, let's say, a French press. But I'm guessing you're not gonna wanna travel with one of these. Your other option is a hand-cranked coffee grinder. They're very affordable these days and they yield great results. Just a little tip. All right, so I have everything all set up. First step is going to be the grind. Let's grind our coffee. We might as well start with the Casi Cielo, the Starbucks Guatemalan blend. So for the Aeropress, we're gonna need 15 grams of whole bean coffee. And why whole bean? Well, let me tell you, if you have your coffee roaster grind your beans for you, that's a very nice gesture. But keep in mind, the expiration date after the coffee has been ground is much sooner. Whole bean coffee will be good for 2 to 3 weeks, give or take. Once you grind those beans, you're looking at more like 2 hours. So you see the significance. So 15 grams of coffee. Smells wonderful. Now, Starbucks claims that this is a medium roast, but that depends on who you ask, because if you ask me, that's a medium plus roast there. Every coffee roaster, every company has a slightly different definition of roast degrees. Let's grind this up. Now, the Aeropress has its own filters. They're very inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon, and when you order them, you get several hundred of them. So they'll last you forever. We need to pre-soak this little filter. Why? Well, that's going to help the coffee pass through this filter when it's time to plunge out from the Aeropress, but also potentially rinse out any residual paper flavor that is in that filter. And we can put this off to the side. The main contraption consists of these 2 pipe pieces. What we want to do is take this rubber gasket and put it right into the opening of the secondary pipe. And we're going to put this right on top of our scale. Set it to 0 and then take our freshly ground coffee. I did a medium plus grind. Our scale should read 15 grams, which it does. We're gonna tare it one more time, bringing it back to 0. Let's get our hot water. Now remember, boiling water is not what we want. What we're shooting for is 200 degrees Fahrenheit. We do not want to scorch or burn the coffee. That's why it's important to have that thermometer on hand. So the rule of thumb is we're gonna double the weight of the coffee. 15 grams of coffee, we're gonna add 30 grams of hot water. And we're gonna know precisely how much water we're putting in there based on our scale. You see why this is important. Now we're just gonna give that about 10 seconds, and then, very important step, we're going to stir very gently for about another 10 seconds. And a little high school chemistry trick, rinse off your tool with your water. One of the most important things is happening right now. The coffee is degassing. Coffee beans have CO2 locked inside. If you don't let that gas release, it's going to disrupt the brewing process. So right now, we're not filling up this contraption, we're letting that CO2 empty out from the coffee. Usually I give this a good 30 seconds. I got a little help from the Apple Watch here. Now we're going to fill the Aeropress nice and gently, making nice circular motions, making sure that we're getting all of the coffee on the surface. Now don't go to the exact top, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, about a half an inch. And we're just gonna let this brew for 60 seconds, 1 minute. So while we're waiting, there are countless amounts of ways to brew using the Aeropress. Many different methods. A lot of coffee roasters have their own recipes and methods. I'm using one that's basically inspired by Blue Bottle Coffee. Blue Bottle is a coffee roaster out of Oakland, California. And now that our 60 seconds has elapsed, I'm gonna go back in and gently stir for about 20 seconds. What that's gonna do is just pretty much halt the brewing process. Beautiful. Now we gotta move fast. We take our cap with our filter. It's gonna screw very easily onto the top. We're gonna do a flip and we're going to plunge. Now this is very important. We do not want to apply tons of pressure while doing this. And we want to keep plunging until we hear a hissing sound. Let's see if we can pick it up with the microphone. You hear that? Perfect. That's when we know to stop applying pressure. And there it is. There is our Casi Cielo Starbucks Guatemalan coffee from Antigua Valley. Brewing method, the Aeropress. Oh yeah, you have no idea how much I want to drink this right now. However, we have another coffee to brew. What's so great about cleanup of the Aeropress is that it's incredibly easy. Check this out. Done. One of the huge perks to the Aeropress. But we're gonna reset and go again. Spectre Coffee Roasters out of Glens Falls, New York. Check out the difference between this coffee and the Starbucks coffee. This has a much more milk chocolate color. We want to do everything exactly the same, so there's absolutely no variables. Grind them up. So brewing your own coffee, is it an extremely tedious thing to do every single day? Yeah, sure, it can be. And it can be very frustrating when things go wrong. However, if you're passionate about coffee, it can be very rewarding too. Just like any sport, the more you practice, the more gains you make, the more rewarding it becomes. With a little bit of practice, with a little bit of diligence, you'll be the best coffee maker, the best barista in your neighborhood or on your block. And let me tell you, it's totally worth it, because at the end of the day, you'll be making better coffee than the cafe down the street. I guarantee it. So here we go. Let's talk about price points. Casi Cielo is gonna cost us $14.95 for 1 full pound bag. This is a single origin coffee, and usually single origin you are paying a premium price. Now the Spectre coffee from Glens Falls, roasted a week and a half ago, $11. Right off the bat, much different aromatic profile. A little bit of like hickory smoke and molasses. Definitely some fudgy notes and a little bit of baking spice. Wow, this to me is much more of a savory approach. I'm gonna start with the lesser of the intensity of coffees, that being the Costa Rican Spectre coffee, and then we'll move to the higher intensity Starbucks. This is where my palate is right now. This is what I enjoy drinking. It's not for everybody. Why? Because the acidity is very bright. What do I mean by bright? What is bright acidity? Well, it means it has high levels of acidity. The darker the roast, the more of that acidity you're going to sacrifice. And since a lot of people don't like acidity in their coffee, they do tend to gravitate towards the darker roast. Flavor-wise, a tart, sour cherry, even some darker fruits as well, like black fruits, cassis, a darker blackberry bramble, but also caramel. I didn't really smell it on the nose, but tasting it, I'm getting more of this caramel flavor. Very beautiful. I would love to have a cup of this a little bit hotter. The Casi Cielo Starbucks. So a confirmation for what was happening on the nose, also happening on the palate. Definitely getting that fudgy baking spice. If you serve this to me, I would drink it. But I would also tell you that it's a little bit wacky. It's a little bit disjointed and out of balance as far as the acidity level and the amount of bitterness. Now, bitterness is not a bad thing, but you gotta harness it. You gotta keep it under control. If I were to give this a second shot, which I certainly will, I'm going to decrease the brew time on it significantly to try to make sure that we don't get those astringent compounds in the coffee itself. But by doing that, you could potentially be sacrificing some of the flavor too. Let's talk about body real quick. A nice kind of like a whole milk creaminess on this cup. What I mean by that, it has the same viscosity as you would find on, like, if you were to take a sip of whole milk. It has that same mouthfeel, where this coffee, a little bit more full. It fills the cheeks. It's a more of a velvety, fuller mouthfeel. Let's go with cream here and whole milk right there. Look, I'm not a Starbucks hater. I frequent Starbucks. It's just, we have to remember, guys, it's a franchise. And the fact that they can produce something as good as this is pretty impressive. So if you can, my suggestion would to be get your hands on something like this. I think Spectre did a pretty great job with selecting these beans and the roast. If you can get your hands on small production, fantastic. But like I said, I am not a Starbucks hater. So the Aeropress, in my opinion, something that does belong in your arsenal if you are a coffee lover. And trust me, it's not a large investment, and you can take this anywhere you go. Pop it in your suitcase, take it camping. You can always make it work, even in a hotel room. You can make quality coffee in a hotel room. So I'm gonna make one more cup because these are like ice cold. So I'm gonna head on outside and transition right into the very next segment. So I am gonna see you very soon. Bye-bye, guys.